Well, today is September 17th, Tuesday, and this is the live call for Module 8. And here we are, and we have a good turnout. This is great. Hi, Marissa.
Hi.
Hi, awesome to see you.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It has been a while.
Yeah.
Good. Lisa Fletcher. Oh my gosh, this is far better than what I was anticipating. For a minute there, I was like, oh, I hope I'm not all by myself on that call. Hi, Lisa.
Hello. Hey.
This is great. Good. Well, let's do a quick, what's that?
You can hear me? Do I need to mute myself?
You're fine for now. I don't hear background noise, but
Okay.
yeah, that sounds good. Oh, this is so great. Let's do a quick check-in with everyone, maybe just for, about a minute or so, to kind of let us know where you are in the course, what you're working on, what has been exciting or feeling successful, and what is maybe feeling challenging. And then the other thing I would like to know is, and Lisa, you're a special case, but I want to know if you've had a chance to connect with your facilitator mentor, or if I need to do any behind the scenes nudging. So that's kind of what I would like to hear from you all as we get going here, and then we'll, based on what we find out as to where everybody is, we'll figure out what we want to do next for this time together. Sound good? Okay. Anyone want to start us out? Catch us up on you and where you are in this journey?
I'll start.
Okay, cool.
So I am so behind that I feel like I'm spinning. So today I won't talk much. I'm just going to listen.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still just back at the beginning of Module 6, and I feel like I've kind of lost track of where I even am. So I have touched base with my mentor.
Good.
And she's been helpful, but I think right now I'm just working on time management skills, which is my only major problem right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, Module 6 isn't too far back. Don't be too hard on yourself.
Okay.
Really. Also, it's Module 6, I think I mentioned this before, is kind of like a peak, is sort of like, it kind of begins to cascade the other direction as far as intensity. So you're kind of in it around 5 and 6. It's kind of like the peak of the contraction. So hang in there with what you're doing. But have you been working with parents or anything?
Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
No, I actually have 2 friends that are pregnant right now, and we both said, let's do this, but it's a matter of scheduling. We all have kids and school and work and everything. So
yeah.
And at this point, I don't even know. Like, I feel like if I did meet with someone, I wouldn't even know where to start. I feel like I don't know. I feel like a little bit overwhelmed by my whole life right now. So even if I sit down, I don't feel like I even would know where to even begin with somebody. Mm-hmm. I know I need to meet them where they are, but I also want to come with some sort of plan. And at this point, I just feel really just like it's blown out.
Okay. Is there, what's a goal you might have for yourself for the next month?
Well, I feel like I need to just get through the reading. I've printed up all the different PDFs and the learning objectives.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like every time I sit down, I realize how much time it's going to take to do it, and I don't have that time.
Mm-hmm.
I just watched the Coyote Call video.
Mm-hmm.
And, I thought that was going to be like a quick 15-minute video, and then I realized it was a whole hour. So I committed and did that, and then I went to watch the second one. It was a whole other hour. So I feel stuck by how long everything is. And then I realized I can bounce around. But even then, I feel like just a little lost.
Yeah. So that's a good point. Well, first of all, you should be able to download those. Were you able to download it? Actually, the Coyote ones, maybe not, because those are like a YouTube thing, which YouTube makes it tricky to do downloading. But what I was going to say is some of the things that are considered to be resources like that, you can pick and choose what feels supportive to what you're working on. Like, I would focus on like the main teaching video, the maps, the journal prompts, things like that.
Yeah.
And then go back to the resources when you feel like, if you're going to do Coyote, for example, with someone, then go and like prepare yourself by diving in more deeply to those pieces.
And after this course is over, will we still have access to all of those things?
Mm-hmm. You'll have access for a year to the whole course. And then a lot of it is downloadable. So then those pieces you could have forever. And if there was something specifically you wanted access to further, we could talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to say, as far as being at module 6, like, you have time once the content, like after module 9 is opened, there isn't more content coming. So then you can go back and pick a few things from each module that you want to focus on, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Hang in there. It sounds like you got a lot going on. So do the best you can and keep one little step forward. That's all that's required. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? And I'm guessing, I'm just going to say it, I bet you're not the only one who feels behind and overwhelmed. So let's see who's next.
Yeah, that's me. I'm behind.
Okay.
Yeah, I am actually in module 5, so I'm further behind than you are, Nikki. So I hope that makes you feel a little better. Yeah, I feel good about finally being in module 5.
Mm-hmm.
Which is good. I'm working with parents, one couple right now, so it's definitely been motivating because I meet with them once a week, and so it's been helpful for me to kind of dive in some more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm kind of getting to a point. This week it will be my 4th class with them, so I've met with them for the last 4 weeks, and we have 2 more to go. And I feel like I'm starting to run out of content now. So yeah, so I
That's good.
I need to jump back on the modules and start, finding some more to share with them. We've done a lot of pain coping. We just kind of wrapped up our pain coping last week, and so I think I need to like weave more of the art processes in now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree with Nikki. I felt like a little lost here and there, but I think in the last few weeks I've been trying to dive back in a little bit. I guess I'm just feel like I don't know when there's like an end to the course. I think that's part of my lack of motivation is like I do really good when I know there's like deadlines. So for me, it's been like creating my own personal deadlines, since you guys are really like open to like us taking our own pace in the course.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you can speak to that a little bit, Erica, like maybe if I know more about like the certification process, it will light another fire under my butt.
Right. So you have access to the course for a year after it's over, which is in the next module opens in October. So a year from October. And some point within that time, ideally my preference, just because I think sometimes when time goes on really far, it's harder to get back on track, especially since we won't be having monthly calls and all that. I think, in the closer to October, the better, you would be submitting recordings of yourself, which I was just going to say, as you're working with this family right now, maybe try to get some recordings done, because then you're one step ahead. And even if it's just for your own, if it's not for certification, that's fine, but it could be for your own growth, to watch over the recording and just see what you find to be the areas that really worked and which ones you feel like you might want to do differently next time. So you'll submit recordings to your mentor, your facilitator mentor, and they'll give you feedback. And then, you have to have completed the assessments for each module. And it's just basically an agreement. We don't expect that you've listened to every single resource and looked at every single thing and tried every single process. And That's not the expectation. The expectation is that you're working with the material and diving into it and getting a grasp on it, but knowing that you're always going to come back to it, and grow and want to learn something new. And, you might work with a family and realize like, oh, this family really specifically needs the excavation of fears process. And maybe you haven't really done that yet. So you might go back and watch the recordings on that. And,
okay.
So.
Yeah. How many recordings are we supposed to be submitting? Like, I think I'm a little lost in terms of that. I've only recorded myself twice and I haven't submitted anything.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
In the module, in the welcome module, the certification requirements are all laid out there. So you can go back and look over that and talk yourself through like what kind of time frame you want to set up. And I like the idea of setting your own time frame and goals and maybe mapping it out around what makes sense. And and if you want to post a recording, I know it takes courage, but if you want to post a recording that you have permission, it's, private Facebook group, nobody else would see it, but then we can publicly give you some feedback, which, can be hard, but everybody can learn from you. And we won't like beat you up or anything. It'll be, at least you can ask Marissa. I don't know. She was brave. And then I gave her feedback and I don't know if that felt good or bad.
It was great.
But everybody what's that?
Super helpful.
Yeah. So then everybody can learn from it. I mean, ideally, especially in this cohort, because it's a nice size and it's not too overwhelming. You guys are becoming familiar faces with each other, allowing yourself to, be a tool for everyone else to learn as well. So I would recommend that if you're willing. But yeah.
I'll think about it.
Well, and here's the other thing as far as your recordings go. You definitely don't have to be you don't have to submit ones that you feel like you nailed it. You could even submit or post one that says like, I don't know what happened here. Anyone have some ideas? I mean, it can be, I think everyone would learn from that too. So don't have the expectation that you're only submitting or sharing videos that you feel really awesome about, because we recognize that this is a process. Yeah. Okay, cool. And I'm going to get you your facilitator.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Who else? Where are you in this journey?
I can tell you because I don't have that much to tell.
Okay.
Basically, I think I'm still in module 4, and I honestly think I hadn't even opened it in a real long time. Like, I think it was April that something really major happened in my life, and I had to put everything in pause. And like, I basically just went to like being a solo parent like 100% of the time. So it was just kind of like, okay, I guess I'll just have to wait. But now the kids are in school, so for me, September is always kind of just like, ooh, it's almost like the new year. Even though it's the first year that my kids go to school, for some reason, this is like the time of the year that I start getting, maybe because I don't want to go outside anymore. It's raining all the time here.
Right.
So yeah, like I feel good about just like making a plan to get back on track, but I'm not super stressed out about it. But it's just kind of like, kind of like finding a rhythm a little bit. It's just like, I used to have a rhythm, but every time that my kids were not here, I would just sit down and like do like 1 hour, just like, okay, like I have 3 days a week that I can do 1 hour, and that's what I would do. And that's what I would do consistently. And I kind of like, it worked really well for me. And then I stopped doing that, but now I feel like I can get back into it, and it's probably going to take me a while, but well,
setting aside that time sounds amazing, and like that could be a good setup for success around, really dropping in once.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just like even if I can do only like a little bit, as long as I'm consistent about it, I will be moving forward every single time. So that's what I'm trying to do right now.
Good. That sounds good. And did you connect with the facilitator?
No, but you did send me the email. I just haven't, she didn't write to me, and I haven't written to her either, but I will reach out to her.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what is it for though.
At this point, it would be a matter of developing a relationship with them.
Okay.
And asking for, having a dialogue around, goal setting and structure and what is working and what isn't. And then you'll have another call with them just to kind of see how things are going whenever it feels like the right time. And then you'll have a call with them before you submit your recording. You'll submit your recordings, and then you'll have a call with them after.
Okay.
So there's 4 kind of half-hour-ish calls with them that it's just to offer you support. Some people really like that extra accountability and somebody who they can bounce, some ideas off of or get some feedback from. Other people, that isn't as important to their process, but ultimately that's who will be reviewing your recordings and giving you feedback and recommending you for certification.
Cool.
So now it would be mostly just developing some rapport and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. Well, welcome back. I'm sorry that things took a turn that you weren't expecting, and it sounds like you've kind of looped back around and finding your way.
Yeah, it had to happen at some point. I'm glad it happened when it happened, and now moving forward.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that, and thanks for being back. We're happy to see you.
I'm happy to be here.
Okay, good. Who else?
I can share. I just opened and started going over module 7.
Good.
After a little bit of a break. Summer was like disruptive in a great way, but so I just opened that, and it's actually a really exciting module because it's about like setting up your practice and like thinking about what your practice and how you want it to look and all these things. So it's pretty exciting to get into. Cool. So that's where I'm at. My facilitator mentor emailed me, and I haven't emailed her back, but I'm going to.
Okay.
And that's what is happening right now. I have some clients who I have already warmed them up to the idea of recording with me. So I'm hoping that, because in the past I always sort of I was trying to add it at the last minute, and I felt really uncomfortable doing that. So with these 2 or 3 new clients at the very beginning, I was like, and by the way, we do 2 prenatals, but if you want to add an extra prenatal visit, I'm learning these processes. I'd love to lead you through some of them.
That's a good way of doing it.
So yeah, it made me feel better. And then they're like, ooh, we get more. So even though they don't know anything yet. So I'm hoping that will work. And I'm going to start doing that with them pretty soon.
Good.
Probably in the next couple weeks. Yeah.
Great. Good. Yeah, that's a nice offering to give them a little extra, or make them think that it's a little extra, and then
we'll
prep them for the recording. Yeah,
I think that was important because that's something I haven't done in the past, and I just felt like it's such a an intimate space to begin with, to be asking oh, and by the way, do you mind if I prop my phone up over here while we talk? It just felt really uncomfortable for me. Yeah. So I'm hoping that bringing this in on the front end will help me actually do it.
Right. Good. I hope so too.
Yeah. I'm optimistic.
Yeah. Most times that gets set up and everybody forgets about it, and you can remind them that it's, it's not, it won't be shared publicly in any way. And,
Yeah, and they all know me and trust me already. It's one of them's a repeat client, and the other 2 are friends and a coworker. So
okay, good. Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing those.
I'll share if I think I will try and share something on Facebook. That's a goal for me too.
Okay, so. Yeah, that would be awesome. Put yourself out there.
Thanks.
All right, Lauren. Thank you. Anna or Brittany, are you guys in a place that you can share, or is the timing not good for you?
I can share. I actually had to step out of the car.
Okay.
Faye's not having a great time.
Okay.
So I'm still in Module 4 as well. I pretty much have to do the home practices and the optimal fetal positioning article, and that would wrap that up.
Great.
I'm surprised because at this point I've had an easier time finding opportunities for like group sessions than one-on-ones. And the vendor fair, it was kind of slow. Talking to some of the vendors who've done it historically, they said that the turnout this year was an older demographic overall. But I did get a few people who are interested. I am either going to schedule for this Sunday or next Sunday to do a session.
Great.
And kind of move with them, try and schedule it weekly. I just need to see what works for their schedule.
Cool.
The other thing that came from doing the vendor fair was, I have a little hesitation, but there is a homeless shelter about 30 minutes south of where we are. And the woman who was there from the homeless shelter said they always, and it's for families experiencing homelessness. So they said they always have people who are able to come in and talk about like opportunities for housing and for jobs and things like that. But there's not much in terms of resources for pregnant or young families or parents. And so she said that would be really helpful to have somebody who could come in and do some sessions with some of the families in those circumstances. My hesitation is just that I feel like I would need to figure out how to adjust it. Some of the things that like self-care and things like that, looking at it from a less privileged point of view and being able to make suggestions in that regard. And I've moved some things around in the schedule to be able to carve out time to like really commit and go through the modules when I'm not working with people. Like phase appointments, I've only scheduled on certain days. Now I just need to find a babysitter who can watch the kids on the days when I'm open. So.
Right. Good. Well, it sounds like you have a lot of things in the hopper. That's exciting, and a lot of possibilities. And I think the common theme seems to be that when you have people to work with, it kind of enables you to keep moving in the material. And so, way to go on going to a vendor fair and doing some outreach, and that's really exciting. And the group process, is really cool because it allows you to really practice what does this mean to be a mentor in a group setting, and how do you manage the dynamic of multiple people, and how do you keep moving. And so I imagine that gives you a lot to work with.
I'm pretty excited. I feel like it might also help me working with like different demographics, might also help me kind of open my eyes a little bit and learn more about myself while I work with them as well. So
yeah. And I think, you mentioned that there's probably some personal work for you going into it, so that you are going into it in a place of awareness and not, and just offering what makes sense and appropriate. And I think the bottom line in any setting, whether it's the place for people experience homelessness or in other clients you work with, goes back to that piece around meeting people where they are. And starting with what is it that, where are they? What do they believe? What do they need to know? What are their questions? That type of thing. That works for everyone. And that can help you to get out of your own mind around having it right. But yeah, cool. And a lot of the birth justice resources that are in there are designed to help those who, especially if this is somewhat new or it's not your own experience, to give you some additional resources. You might even go back to some of those so that you are doing that work for yourself, so that you are in a place of meeting people where they are. Awesome, Brittany. And did you connect with your facilitator mentor?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's on my to-do list as well.
Okay.
Faye, she's been flaring since her surgery, so
yeah, you have a lot going on too.
I'm trying to juggle it, and
Yeah.
it's like we make some progress, and then she started school, so every time we figure out, okay, like the antibiotics work this time, then it's like a virus, and
yeah.
So,
well, just the same as what I said to Nikki, it's like one little step, just keep taking those little steps and doing what you're doing. Yeah. Cool. All right. How about you, Anna? Are you in a place that you can share what's going on with you?
Yeah. I've opened module 7 as well, and I'm working with parents, and I've been in contact with my facilitator to find an appointment.
Great.
So I feel like I've been moving like back and forth in the modules and doing like picking things.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done the assessment because I felt like I just got stuck, and so I just been moving on, and we'll be going back to them later. I've been working with mostly friends and family actually, and that's been hard. I've been thinking a lot about what it means to be a mentor, and like my own sort of issues and things coming up in this. So yeah, it's been a lot, like how I can be a mentor when I'm also like a friend, and yeah.
What's the what comes up for you around that?
I think it was like the last call with Carrie. Was it like in module 6 when you were away? We talked a bit about that, because I've been like, if I had a friend, I've been sharing like my own pregnancy or like birth journey with them, and then like I realized that it doesn't work very well. Like I shouldn't do that as a mentor. So it's hard to I guess it's just hard when I know them, and like how to sort of like stay in the mentoring role and not just like yeah.
Right. And how do you differentiate that? It's when you are friends, that is a fuzzy line, because you would perhaps want to share your birth experience or what you're processing for yourself with a friend in a way that you wouldn't as a mentor to somebody that wasn't a friend.
Exactly.
Right. So that's tricky.
Yeah.
Do you have people to work with that aren't friends?
Not right now. It's just now it's like or like people that I know, they're not really friends. So but my sister is pregnant as well, and that's been it's like it's so close, so it's interesting to see what's coming up.
Yeah. It gives you extra things to work on. Well,
it does.
I think working with friends or family members is a great place to start, to try things out and to wet your feet and get your courage built up to take these further out. But I think you're right that it gets tricky when you're trying to balance that mentor role with your friends or family. So I think it can be done. I think it's just it gets into a gray area that's sometimes a little hard to read.
Yeah.
So maybe the more you do that, the more ready you'll be to find someone to work with who you don't know or is less in your inner circle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, good to hear where you all are. So we are ranging from 4 to 7. Lots of material to dive deep into. And one thing I think I've said this to you before, but and I know that it can feel a lot when you open the module and you're like, oh my God, there's 20 pieces and some of these are an hour long and all of that. So I really encourage you, you do have to, open them to move on, but I want you to make this work for you. So if there's pieces that you just need to click and look at and say like, maybe make yourself a note, make a sticky note. I'm coming back to module 5 because I want to go back to that practice, but I'm going to keep moving right now. And so not to get bogged down by the reading, for example, or especially the article summary piece. Like the point of that article piece is that 2 things. One is that I didn't feel like it would serve people for the modules to have a ton of content like that, like all this like evidence-based stuff that you could go out and read in an article. Like that's not what my area of expertise is either. So it's to help you develop a resource library. It's for you to develop a discerning mind where you can read an article and think like, what part of this is useful and what part of this is outcome focused or whatever. But it is not designed to be like a high school report where you need to, write a 7-paragraph essay on it or anything like that. It's really so that piece, especially what I don't want people to get bogged down on that each module. It's really to like get you some resources and some background in case you had a client who asked you a question about what's the science behind mindfulness, for example, or wanted to know about prenatal nutrition. Like I want you to have the information, or at least I want you to know where you could send them to an article that you feel like would serve them well, but not feel like it's something that's in each module that you need to spend hours and hours and hours doing. So that's especially that piece. And the reading, that's one thing over the year after the course ends, you could always go back and pick up one of those books and read it in more detail. So they're designed to kind of move with the content of the module, but if you don't get to it, that module, it's not like something that should hold you back. My preference would be that you're just opening it, you're finding something that's really exciting, you dive in, you try it out, troubleshoot it, and then keep moving, So, because you don't have to record yourself doing every process. So find some pieces in each one and then just get back on track and get moving on to the next one, instead of feeling like you need to absolutely cross and check every piece of each module off. So hopefully that feels manageable, because there is a lot in there, partly because I want you to have all the content for when, as you grow as a mentor, when you want to add something new to your practice, you could go back and pull out a new thing. So that's why it's there, not so that you would, master it all right now. So I'll just give you a preview of what's in Module 8. I don't think since nobody's there, I don't think it makes sense to dive into it too deeply, but it's also kind of an exciting module because finally it's about the return. It's coming out of the underworld and the return and the postpartum journey, and the gates, the birth story gates, which I think you'll find. I know there's a taster for that in the Heart of Mentoring at the beginning, but kind of coming back around to helping guide people through their postpartum journey, looking through this lens of the heroic journey and the gates that they bump into along the way. So it's pretty exciting in that way. And there's a process that's how to help people with a difficult birth story. So I think some of you may have taken a Kintsugi or birth story listening course. This is like a mini version of that because those are courses in and of themselves. But this is so that if and when you bump into someone who has a story that they need to work through, you have a tool for that. So that's in there. And yeah, some other processes that you'll discover when you get there. But I guess it makes more sense to figure out if anyone, to maybe do some troubleshooting, if anyone wants to throw out like a case study, something that you have tried, that you want to work through, or ask for some feedback or suggestions from your peers or from me on. Anybody have something from one of the modules that you've worked on that you'd like to ask about or take deeper?
I have a question, and it's not necessarily like module specific, but
Okay.
when it's not the first birth, and there are other littles running around, and I don't know how to approach that. I mean it's great for like non-focused awareness when you're like, okay, what are you hearing? What are you seeing? But other than that, I don't know how to be able to like really be able to sit down with people if they have other kids. Like one of my friends said she'd be open to it, except that she's got 4 kids already. And she has no idea how she'd be able to sit down and do that with me. And she homeschools. So it's not like we could even do it like during school hours.
Right.
So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
just wondering if there's any suggestions for kind of how to approach that without being like, well, you need to get a babysitter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyone have a suggestion, or have you worked with that? Anyone else have an idea for Brittany on that? I mean, I think on a practical level, it is really hard to do this work, and for people to be able to drop in and to inquire and to feel into what you're taking them into, or if you're doing pain coping, for them to actually focus on what you're teaching them. I think that's a reality. I think that's hard. And so I think there's, a couple options. One is to say that, like, you would love to do it, but it is important that it's a time, and maybe you can kind of frame it in such a way that it's like really they'll get the most out of it. They would get the most out of it. They would be able to really spend some time preparing for this pregnancy in a way that, with their 4 kids running around and all that, they probably haven't had a chance to do. So you might even validate the reality of that for that parent, which is like, it must be hard to feel like you don't have time to even prepare for this pregnancy in a way. And so if you're literally and truly validating that the experience is hard, and maybe wondering, would it feel good to you to do this in a way that does, in a place or a time where your kids aren't around, so that you can really make it about you and this baby. That might be motivating in a way that isn't you saying, I only do this if you have a babysitter, but is instead making it authentically about what would be best for her. And if she says, I can't do it, then you could say, I'm certainly willing to give it a shot. We should probably keep in mind that it's going to be a little bit, there may be distractions, and it may be harder to drop into it in the same way. And in that case, you may keep it more conversational, like you might do first birth story, but you might do it more in a way that if she's distracted and looking over here, you can bring her back and ask her a question to get her back on track. It might be more conversational rather than like, we're going to do a process now, because it might be interrupted. And then also, depending on the age of the kids, if you're doing pain coping or something, invite them to join. Everybody can learn mindfulness practices, and it's great for kids to learn coping strategies for pain or discomfort, so that's another thought that's coming to mind. Yeah, anyone else have a suggestion?
It seems like that would be a good time to practice non-focus awareness too.
Mm-hmm.
The kids making a bunch of noise.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Good question. Anyone else have something they're working with?
I have a question. I was just going through my notes, and I am sort of unclear about all the archetypes, and I'm wondering if there's a document that has all of them, or if I should just, because what I'm trying to do is like, I keep being like, oh yeah, there's that archetype, and then I sort of like write about it, and then in another module, I'm like, okay, then there's this other archetype, and I like sort of understand them, and I like really understand them when I'm listening to someone talk about them. Yeah. And then when I go back and I'm trying to like, well, which archetype does this fit or whatever? Because I do think it's like a helpful framework to think about like where people are. But I'm just finding myself like confused about some nuances.
Forever confused about nuances of archetypes. That's just the reality of archetypes. So there's material in the Heart of Mentoring course from that you were in a while ago that's about the archetypes of birth. That's kind of foundational. The thing that is why it's partly confusing, I'm sure, is because it depends on what you read and where you get that information as to which archetype we're talking about and how it's named.
Right.
Because, like, for example, traditionally on the reading list for Birthing from Within was a book called, oh, dang it. What's it called? The author is named Carol Pearson, and it's called
Awakening the Archetypes Within.
Hi, Nikki. Just in the nick of time.
Hi.
Thank you. Awakening the Archetypes Within. So did you hear Lauren's question? Or did you just—
I sure did, yeah. I mean, so, like you said, you could look back through Heart of Mentoring, and also Ancient Map.
Yeah, that's
Ancient Map for Modern Birth has a good synopsis of the archetypes you've been learning about in this course.
Yeah, so that's what's confusing is where I was going with the Carol Pearson book, which is a great book. And if you want to find it in a library, it's an awesome book about archetypes just in general. It's not about archetypes of birth. It's about archetypes just in general. But her languaging is a little different. The naming of them is a little different. And so what you want to start to be able to do is kind of identify basically like sort of the core groups, like the child archetypes and the adult archetypes, and be able to kind of pinpoint and listen for those different voices, knowing that all the way from Carl Jung down to us speaking here today about it, there's going to be variations in the naming of them or in the way they're described, but there's sort of, it's like there's sort of categories or sort of themes around them that you could start to sort of identify and feel into. And so, yeah, what I speak to in some of the modules might be slightly different than what you heard in Heart of Mentoring / a little different than what's in Pam's book. Although this course material is mostly drawn from her book, the Ancient Map book. So the archetypes in the book and what we speak to here are pretty lined up. But if you go looking up archetypes in general, you might find one that you've never heard of. And so you might wonder for yourself, which does this archetype align with in the Birthing from Within model? Is this a child archetype? Is this an adult archetype? Yeah.
I've actually also asked my mentor about this, Lauren, because like I feel like I read them one in January and one in February. I just want like a snapshot or some flashcards or cheat sheet to remind myself, even if it's like different child archetypes, and even if it's not exact, I need just like something, just like a quick cheat sheet rather than having to go dig through a bunch of books and courses and all this stuff. But
I keep starting a list and then being like, I don't know where to find this one. But I totally forgot that I could look at Heart of Mentoring still. So I think that would help me.
Yeah. If you have any trouble accessing that, let me know. And if you find a piece from that is helpful and references this conversation, feel free to post it in the Facebook group as a reminder for other people, because we do move on from those courses and you kind of forget what was there, and it sounds like other people might find that useful as well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for asking that.
Sure.
I asked Nikki. Oh, did somebody else have something they wanted to ask?
Yeah, I just and I don't know if it would be any more or less detailed than what we already have done, but I think, does Pam have something on her website about the archetypes? I thought she had a workshop on her website.
Website?
Yeah. That doesn't necessarily mean it would be free.
She had led a workshop on that a while back, but it's not on her current website.
Okay.
Yeah. I asked Nikki to be a guest feature on our call today because she's a pro at the birth story listening and processing, and that's what's in Module 8. And so to catch you up, Nikki, nobody's in Module 8 yet. So we have a range from Module 4 to Module 7. So this would be new information, but are you up for doing a demo? And maybe somebody would do it for you, and then we can at least keep this as a reference for people when they come to Module 8?
Yeah, for sure.
So what I had wanted her to do is to do a demo with someone on the call of this modified birth story. I don't know what we're calling it, modified birth
process.
Story, process, so that you could see it in action, and that you could also watch back over it later when you want to give it a try, and you have an additional resource for that. So Nikki, do you want to give a little background?
Take it away.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would love to demo this live for someone, just as we did with the I think it was with this group, the Courageous and Compassionate Excavation of Fears, a little while back. And you'll notice a lot of parallels between that process and this process, because this is basically the other side of that process, applying the same principles. So does someone have a birth story that you would like to shift your relationship with? It could be from when you gave birth. It could be a birth that you attended that's just got a piece that you're feeling unsettled about. And also another parameter, for the sake of this call, I'm going to ask you, whoever volunteers, to give me a story that's like less than an 8 out of 10 on the distress scale, just so that we're not getting into the weeds and it doesn't wind up feeling like, whoa, I don't know how I can take that on, if that makes sense. So who's got one?
I guess I could do it.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah. How do I do it?
Great, thanks, Marissa. Yeah, so it'll be a guided process that I'll just sort of walk you through. Marissa, is this from when you, is this from you giving birth? Is this from you attending a birth?
This is from me giving birth.
From you giving birth, okay.
Yeah.
So when you gave birth, I am guessing that there were lots and lots of moments in your birth story, right? And some of the moments in a birth story are sort of nice to look back on, reflect on, remember. Could be moments of joy, connection, humor, relief. And other moments are not so joyful, right? Some of the moments kind of rub you the wrong way. They could be moments of feeling disappointed, moments of feeling alone or let down. And there might even be more than one that feels that way. But for the sake of our work today, Marissa, I'm going to ask you to find just one moment in your birth story that's really rubbing you the wrong way, that you would like to shift your relationship with. So you can even take a moment just to scan through the movie of your birth story in your mind.
I guess like there is two, and one of them, which is kind of like the one that bothers me the most, actually happened like after the birth. So I don't really know if it is like quite, but it feels like it is within the story.
Yes, yeah, you can use that.
Yeah.
Okay. And can you tell me a little about that moment, almost as if I were to hand you a little index card and you were going to draw me a picture of that one moment. Can you tell me what that picture would look like?
It would be my bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And my newborn baby is sleeping on the bed with his dad. And I am sitting on the edge of the bed, and my toddler is just like running around the bedroom. And I am so tired and I just want to go to sleep. But nobody's taking care of the toddler.
Yeah.
And I keep on feeling like I'm the one that should be sleeping with the baby.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds really overwhelming. Yeah. Those adjustments and new family dynamics are so hard, and especially when your body is exhausted. You just want to rest. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Marissa, when you look back on that moment now, what is coming up for you as far as your internal dialogue or how you're seeing yourself in that moment?
Just how unfair it feels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that I had literally just given birth, like 2 hours before or less. And I think everybody kept on saying like I was doing so well and I'm so strong and everything went so well. So I feel like everybody assumed that I would be able to handle everything so well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just wanted to go to sleep. And it felt so
yeah.
fair for me that I felt like I always have to handle the hardest parts of everything.
Yes. And what are you telling yourself that it means about you that that moment happened?
I don't know, that I made the wrong choice.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's kind of a natural strategy that we tend to fall into of blaming ourselves in moments when we feel powerless. It's almost like the idea is if I can find a way that it's my fault or that I did something wrong, then I can control it, and then I'm not so powerless. Yeah. And how is that moment still showing up for you in your life today, Marissa? How's it still impacting you?
I mean, I feel like I still struggle a lot with that, with just feeling like I just have to do it all myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in theory, I had people there that were supposed to be helping me, and I don't know if I didn't communicate good enough. Or, I mean, like I really, like I'm mostly angry at my kid's dad because I feel that I shouldn't have to even argue about it.
Right.
When I tried to wake him up and tell him that he needed to put the toddler to sleep, he told me he had not slept all night.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm mostly angry at him, but then I also wonder, like, if I just, like, again, like, made the wrong choice at thinking that he would be able to step up, even though he had never done it, and he has historically never done it, and that I should have talked to my friends. Like, I had a friend, one of my best friends was at my birth, and my mom was at my birth, but everybody felt like they were so tired. You know, everybody's like, well, we were so tired. Like, the birth was so exhausting. We didn't sleep all night.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and you also didn't sleep all night and gave birth.
And it almost feels like, I don't know, I'm a doula. I spend a lot of nights that I'm up all night, and then I like finish a birth and I come back home and I am alone here with the kids. So I'm just watching them. So I feel like a lot of times I kind of have no choice.
Yeah.
So I feel like everybody kind of just assumes that I like need less, you know, like I need less sleep, I need less help, I need less support because I am so good at taking care of myself. And it's still just like a dynamic that plays out in my life. And every time that I think back on that birth, even though in theory and a lot of different ways it was a positive experience, that's the moment that still stays with me.
Yeah, right. Because it's still playing out, right? Just in new ways now.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a problem then of having all of this weight on you and having all of these expectations on you. And do you also have heavy expectations of yourself?
Yeah,
as far as doing it all and operating on little sleep and that kind of thing.
Part of it is also like I really feel like I can handle like living with a lot less sleep in general. I don't know if it balances out because I sleep so much when I just go to sleep with my kids. You know, I don't really try to do anything else. I just like, I don't really know. But yeah, like I feel like I kind of don't have much choice other than just doing everything that needs to be done.
And can you think of a time, Marissa, when you actually didn't do all the things that needed to be done yourself? Can you think of a time where something shifted and you were able to let in support, or that support, brought itself in?
During the birth?
No, just any time in your life when you found yourself in this struggle of feeling like you had to do all the things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Can you tell me about one of those times?
Well, recently, like this summer, there are several times, but like it almost happens sometimes like when I think that I'm not going to be able to handle things, that something happens and then someone shows up and is like the perfect person in the perfect moment. I can think of it like last year when I first separated and I started living in this house, and I was just like, I had been making money, and then like the last months I was just not making so much money, like the last months of the year, and I was kind of just feeling like, oh, I don't really know what to do. And then I had my friend that was actually at the birth telling me like she was kind of wanting to spend some time in this town, and she ended up like offering to rent one of the rooms in my house, and that helped me to like keep up financially. And then she ended up like stepping up and like she would make food and she would take care of the kids when I was needing to like just go for a walk, or something like that. So that was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. That's cool. What do you suppose created the space for that to happen?
I mean, I did definitely put it out there that I was like considering finding a roommate, but only if it was like the right person that would be the right match for us. And I'm really not sure exactly how it happened, but it was quite perfect because I also didn't want to necessarily have someone that wanted to live here for a whole year or something.
Right.
So she actually wanted to just spend a few months, and she ended up just being out here for a few months, and then she moved out and she moved back to Portland, and she and it was like exactly at the time that I started making more money again. So I'm not really 100% sure what opened that space. Sometimes it feels like desperation. Like when it feels like things are so desperate and things are feeling so hard that I really, really feel like I just cannot handle it. Then somehow, like, I don't know, the universe gives me a break. I don't really know exactly what creates the situation.
Yeah, sometimes it goes that way, huh? Yeah. What's another time when you felt like it was getting to be too much and something shifted that allowed you to have more support?
Yeah, I mean, recently also like just I was kind of trying to find like on-call sitters again, and it was like right as I met this person that I kind of had already been in touch with, but like I had never actually met her. And I don't know, it ended up being that we became friends really fast. And she's a solo parent too, so I watch her kid and she watches my kid, and we ended up like becoming really good friends. But it happened like exactly like the day after I met her. All these things like kind of like fell apart, and it ended up being that I felt like I was completely alone. But then she showed up for me, and she was like, you know what, I know what it's like to just not have anybody, like not have anybody that can help you. And she just has stepped up and become kind of like almost like not necessarily my family, because your family is different, but as close as it can be here in town.
Really close, huh?
Yeah.
Nice. So how did she know that you were having such a tough time?
Well, I wasn't yet.
Oh.
Like it just like I met her like the moment that I was starting to feel like I'm gonna need to find like some alternatives for like the way that my life has been working. And I posted on Facebook that I was looking for on-call sitters. But
And
then it ended up like she became a lot more than an on-call sitter. And then it ended up being that I didn't even have to pay her so much money, because we ended up doing so much trade. And at the point we're like working with each other solely on just like child exchange, and like I'm trading with her a little bit, like for helping her start a business and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was different in these two situations from the situation with your partner after the birth?
I don't know, maybe I just like didn't anticipate that that would be a scenario that could happen, you know, that like I was recently at a birth where we had so many conversations with my client about the importance of her needing to get some sleep after the birth.
Yeah.
So like I had a conversation with the nurse about how we were going to support her to have more sleep during the birth. And I ended up like staying longer than I normally stay, because I was just like hanging out with the baby so that she could sleep for a little while before they transferred her to the postpartum room where her partner was, and he could like tend to the baby a little bit more. But he was like putting the toddler to sleep. So we kind of had a plan about it, because she already had like a very clear idea that she was going to need that.
Yeah.
And
you knew too from experience, right?
I mean, I didn't necessarily know, because like my first birth, we all went to sleep, you know, like, and the babies I feel like are the easy part, but I didn't really like anticipate that anybody would not like that. I would have like, I don't know, I kind of like just didn't think that people would leave me, that I would have like my mom, and because my mom and like one of my best friends and my partner, and you know, like one of the best midwives that I love working with, and like there were a lot of people at my birth. And I did not anticipate that no one would think about the fact that I was gonna have a toddler awake at 4 o'clock in the morning, running around the house on the energy of like there was a birth that just happened here. And like, I mean, sometimes I kind of like chose to think that, for instance, that my ex-partner would maybe think of putting my health first or something. I don't really know exactly what happened there.
It's hard to know what other people are thinking, huh?
Yeah, and I mean, I just guess like for all the other people, like my mom and my friend and the midwife and the doula and the birth, like I think that it wouldn't even cross their mind that he wouldn't take responsibility of putting the toddler to sleep, because I just gave birth. I literally just gave birth. So I don't think anybody would have expected that to happen. And it certainly didn't surprise me. It was not a surprise. It was just more like anger. I don't know.
Yeah. And What do you think is underneath that anger? Because anger is kind of a secondary emotion usually.
Sadness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And what is that sadness around?
I think a lot of it is just like feeling like being a mom means always being last.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to fight it. And like that's like that complete disempowerment of like knowing that in society and in my own life this is like a predominant thing. And it's not even like I know like that I could say like, you know, it's the only that I'm the only person that experiences it, because I see it over and over again, like around my friends and around my work. But it just seems like something that I just don't know how to solve. You know, that it's just like I feel like so many people are out there like screaming how unfair the whole thing is. And I'm just like reading all these parenting books right now, and they're talking about how important it is to be like self-regulated and to like keep calm and like and fill up your own cup, and like everybody's talking about self-care. And it's like, how are you supposed to take care of yourself when there is like literally everything is expected to be taken care of by mothers?
Right.
And it's like, when are we supposed to? And the other thing is like, it's not like we can not do it. You know, it's not like we can just say like, you know what, I need to take care of myself right now, so I'm not going to feed the children. And I'm just not going to take them to school. You know, and I'm just,
and you know,
like,
the issue with these books and these narratives that get passed around is that they don't acknowledge the system.
Exactly.
That modern parents are operating within. Really, it's setting people up to be disappointed, disconnected, even depressed, right? Yeah. So it's interesting that in the exceptions that you told me about, that it sounded like community was an important part of kind of working your way through that. Does that sound right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that is super important.
So Marissa, what attribute within yourself allowed you to reach out and make connections in those moments with community?
I mean, I think I'm like a pretty good communicator. And I'm not really afraid of being vulnerable or asking for help. I am not. Like I do it as often as I can. And also, like, I come from a culture where it's not as big of a deal as it is here in the States.
Yeah.
In some ways. But yeah, like I think like I have a good community in certain ways. You know, I feel like in the States it's really easy to make a community that supports you in some ways, like for instance with like physical objects, because so many people have so much stuff that it's really easy to be like, oh, I need like boots, and people will be like, yeah, sure, you can have these. Don't knock on my door, and I don't really necessarily want to have a conversation, but I'll leave them on my porch for you. And I mean, and I don't necessarily mind. It's just kind of like having to build like different ways of community. You know, there's some communities that are going to support you in certain ways, and some communities that are going to support you in other ways. But I mean, I think part of what has made it easier for me to like develop communities that I am really aware that it needs to be mutual. So like I'm always like getting out of my way to try to help people in whatever way I can. Like I will like make a double batch of soup and like put it in a jar so that I can like take it to a family that just had a baby, and even if I don't know them super well, or I'll just like I do like a lot of things for helping people connect to each other, and I do what I can for helping people connect, helping people when they need help. So I think that's a big part of why people feel more willing to help me when I need help, because they know that I put a lot out there to try to help.
There's a give and take, huh?
Uh-huh.
And yet in that moment, there wasn't a give and take, right? You had just given everything and you were not given what you needed. So you're familiar with Anana's story, right?
Yeah.
Food and water of life. And you just talked about how the food of life is not that hard to get in the US, right? Like, here's some boots. I have 5 pairs that don't fit. But the water of life is something that's a little harder to access. And what I'm curious about, Marissa, is what is the water of life? What is the emotional support that you really needed in that moment?
I guess just like a lot of it has to do with like acknowledgement, but not like a superficial acknowledgement where people are just like I was like even reading about these like again important books where they were talking about praise, you know, and how like when you praise a little kid and you tell them like, oh, good job, like good job on cleaning the table, or good job on putting your stuff away, and what they hear is like, oh, I am good because I am doing this thing, but if I am not doing this thing, I'm not good, kind of thing, you know, like. And I feel like there is a lot of that with birth that has to do with like, oh, you did the things right, oh, like you rocked it because you had a home birth and you had like a vaginal birth, and you didn't even make that much noise, or it didn't even seem like it hurt so much, or whatever, like, you know, that's the kind of praise that I feel like is like that the kind of stuff that I was hearing. And I remember, like, you know, I'm a birth worker, so like I remember everybody, I was like in my, and I don't understand like the need for wanting to let like a newborn baby with like the birthing parent just have like this moment of connection and bonding, but it just felt like I'm alone in the room with the baby and with this partner that has never really showed up for me. And everyone is in the living room, like the midwife and the birth assistant and the student midwife and whoever else, like the birth photographer, they're all in the living room chatting. And like I remember at some point, like I came out from the room with my baby in my arms, and I'm like walking into the living room, and I just kind of like wanted to feel like part of the group, I guess, as opposed to like being alone. And people were like, "Oh my God, you're standing up! Like you're so great!" And what I like needed was just kind of like, I don't even know, like maybe just some. That water of life.
It almost sounds as
connection.
If you need to be seen. Right?
Yeah, for who I am and not for what I did.
That's right. That's right. You got it. You got it. So let's just take a moment and just really drop into this scene, being there, right? Knowing that we can't change the events now that happened, but that your current self can offer that connection, can offer that chance to be seen to your past self. And just take a minute and feel into that and really give that to the Marissa who existed in that moment, because she really needed that. When you give yourself that gift, Marissa, what feels different in your body?
I don't know, my heart.
Your heart. Yeah. That's right. Now, we can't, like I said, we can't change what happened in a birth story. But what can happen, Marissa, is now you've accessed that feeling. You've given yourself an opportunity to be seen. And what you can do from here going forward is to carry that with you. So to not only allow yourself to be seen in that moment, but the other moments that come up in the future, right? In the moments where you're struggling as a parent, in the moments where you're struggling as a doula, or just as a human, to tap into that feeling in your heart and allow yourself to be seen. So if you were to make this a practice whenever you can remember, because I don't want to put, another task on you, say hashtag self-care. If this were to become a practice for you, what do you think is one small thing that your children would notice was different about you? What would they see you do?
I'm not really sure. What they would notice is different about me?
Yes, when you are allowing yourself to be seen by yourself, when you're feeling into that sense in your heart, when this is part of your life now, what is one small thing they might notice?
I'm not really sure.
Okay, give it some.
There are some answers that come up to me, but it seems like not the right answer.
Oh, give me the wrongest answer you can think of.
I don't know, but like the wrongest answer, but not in the way that you might expect it. I don't know. Like I feel like maybe they would notice I am kinder.
Yeah. Well, it's easier.
Slower.
Slower, good. Yes. I think it's easier to be kinder with others when we give it to ourselves, don't you?
Yeah.
And slower. I love that one because so much of being a mom is rush, 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 right? So you might move just a little slower through the world. That sounds really self-compassionate. Okay. How does that feel where we've landed, Marissa? Does this feel like an okay stopping point?
Yeah, it feels good.
Okay, good. So, what are your questions, classmates, Marissa, anyone, about what we just did?
I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to let others talk.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Marissa, for opening up and being so vulnerable. I totally related to that in a different way, but I think that was really awesome to see you open up like that. So thank you.
So you all have a map. You have a map of this process, and there's a point where you're trying to help the storyteller cross the bridge to self-compassion, cross the bridge to a new opening, and that can look different ways. So sometimes people are like, I should have spoken up more in my birth. And what they need to get across that bridge, the missing piece they didn't have, was people often become not very vocal during birth, right? It's hard for them to communicate with others, and it's a normal way that the brain drops into the mammal part of the brain and helps you get through the intensity. So it could look like that. Now, I had no idea where this was going, just to be clear. So what I wound up using was solution-focused dialogue. And in this case, the specific tool of finding exceptions. Remember, we talked to Marissa about, all right, when if you found yourself in this situation where you're totally overwhelmed, but you were able to move through it in a different way. Does that make sense? Okay, so reviewing your solution-focused dialogue skills from Heart of Mentoring and Erica, I'm not sure if they're in a lesson in this course as well. So you've got resources out there. There's also Brief Coaching for Lasting Solutions by Insoo Kim Berg. There's Coaching Plain and Simple by Peter Szabo. I tend to go, even though I love Insoo Kim Berg, I tend to recommend the Peter Szabo book because it's 110 pages and it's very easy to read. So you can eat that one for breakfast. So one of the things that I think is really valuable in doing this kind of work is taking it into the future. Right? That's why I wanted Marissa to think about going forward, what might this look like? And the biggest teaching, I'm so grateful for it, that we were able to offer in this was the power of silence. Did you notice that when Marissa said, I don't know, I didn't bail her out? Right? Silence allows space for that subconscious search to happen, because I don't have the answers for Marissa. I might accidentally stumble upon an answer that could work for her, like the parenting books. That's just kind of tongue in cheek. But really, she knows her life. She knows her support system. She knows her belief system. And so she will be able to zero in on a solution that is really tailored for her needs in a way that I just cannot. Even if I were Marissa's best friend, I still don't know her whole internal landscape, right? Yeah. So when I leave it to her to find the solutions, it's going to be much more powerful, much more impactful to see what she comes up with rather than some suggestion that I come up with.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you, Marissa. It's my pleasure. All right, unless there's other questions, I'll throw it back to you, Erica.
There I go. Thank you so much, Nikki.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So I was just going to say, in wrapping up, since the map for that is in Module 8 and you may not be there yet, if you go back to the map for the compassionate exploration of fear, that is in, who knows off the top of your head which module that's in. I want to say 4 or 5. Anyways, it's a similar process. So if you want to kind of go back and look at that for now, do that until you get to Module 8. And then when you get to Module 8, maybe come back and watch this recording and kind of look at the steps. Now, it always looks different because it's an authentic conversation. So I don't know, you might be thinking like, what was going on there? But if you look at the map, you should be able to see the framework of the conversation. And then the key for both this and the excavation of fears is that there's a framework for it, but it's an authentic conversation where Nikki was like really listening and thinking like, where is this going? Right? And she could come back to her framework, but she wasn't leading necessarily with the next step. But as you practice it, and this is a great one, we were talking earlier about friends and family, practice this kind of thing with somebody that you can, that you're comfortable with, and you can use the framework a little more with more structure, but knowing that when you do this with parents, you're going to be in a place of deep listening and kind of reflecting and seeing what arises as far as what they need, what the next step looks like, but knowing that you have that framework to kind of bounce back to. So know that is ahead for you. And Yeah, and if you're interested, I know everybody's already overwhelmed, so I hate to even offer this up, but Nikki is doing some workshop or some online courses this fall and winter on mindful communication, which is our version of solution-focused dialogue. They won't have like a ton of homework and stuff, but if you feel like that's an area that you want to improve and dive a little deeper, you might look at those mindful communication courses that she's offering. They shouldn't add too much to your workload as far as homework and that kind of thing, but might really support your process. So you could look for those if you're inspired to go deeper on that. Any questions or things that anyone would like to throw out there before we close?
Yes. I have a quick question.
Yeah.
When you're working with people and kind of going through like processes with them, and do you ever like take notes? Like, I don't want them to feel like I'm like a psychiatrist or like a therapist or anything, but like I feel like sometimes it helps me stay a little bit more focused on what they're really saying or like what I'm really supposed to be listening for. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just didn't want them to feel awkward about it. So I just didn't know if that's something that you ever do, is just kind of jot a thing or two down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and absolutely. Since we are down to a couple minutes, I'll just answer that question for you instead of taking into a further dialogue around it for now. But absolutely, I think that's fine. And I think you can prescribe the symptom, like we say, where you might say at the beginning, hey, as you speak, I might jot down a few things just to help me kind of track your story and to be able to kind of reflect back as we go forward. And that way it doesn't feel strange to them. But I think it's great. And it can give you like you might jot down just little like cues that you might want to ask about more detail about. Like, because you don't want to necessarily interrupt someone. Sometimes you can interrupt them and kind of get them back on track. But if they're speaking to something, you might say, wait, I want to go back to one thing I heard you say a minute ago, which was about, something specific. And that might be what you had jotted down. So yeah, I think that's perfectly appropriate. And you're not taking like full on notes, but you might just, just to help yourself keep on track. But if you speak to it ahead of time, then it's even more comfortable probably. But not.
I was taking notes while Marissa was speaking.
Yeah, perfectly appropriate. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I also want to thank Marissa for your vulnerability and your willingness to show yourself so that we can all learn. And I hope that was a meaningful process for you all in your journey as becoming mentors, and for you specifically, Marissa, as a human being. So thank you.
It was really nice. It was good. I have been really interested on the process, and it was nice to experience it myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you were such a beautiful example of what often happens when you turn the spotlight. Really, you turn the spotlight and you ask somebody one question and it's right there. The pain, and so that was a really beautiful example of what we all, what most people need is that moment of being able to be seen in some way and heard. So even if it's just that happens, that's a beautiful thing. So yeah, thank you for your willingness and vulnerability. And I also want to just encourage you all to keep moving. You've got this. You have your one-on-one mentors now to connect with and to have them help you set up some goals and structures for yourself, if that helps, and to troubleshoot anything that's really holding you back. And also keep showing up in the Facebook group, share your videos, support each other. This is how we get to the finish line here. So, all righty. Thank you so much for showing up today and for doing the work and bringing this important stuff to the parents out there who need it.
Thank you, Erica.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.